So think about the fact that people that have been propagandists for Donald Trump from the very beginning, Mika, have been over since this pandemic has been upon us, since the coronavirus has been upon us, before it was even called a pandemic, have been downplaying this, mocking the medical community, saying that it's being exaggerated.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, time and again, it's going to go away magically. As Dr. Fauci said, it's not going to just go away magically. Saying we only have one person here from China we're taking care of. We only have 11 people. Soon it's going to be down to 0. We only have 15 people. Soon it's going to be down to 0. And now they're at it again, and they're at it again in a way that's really dangerous. And I saw John Heilman's recount yesterday and the blame shifting.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of it. Let's play this calendar. This is an updated calendar of what we showed you a couple of days ago from the recount. Take a look.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Our numbers are lower than just about anybody.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
People coming in from China, where this all started, it could have been stopped right where it came from, China. It came from China. It got out of control.
If you think about Governor Cuomo, we're building him 4 hospitals. He's supposed to be buying his own ventilators. We're going to help.
People like Governor Inslee, he should be doing more. He shouldn't be relying on the federal government. Governor Inslee, that's the state of Washington.
Don't call the woman in Michigan. All she does is she has no idea what's going on, and all she does is say, oh, it's the federal government's fault, and we've taken such great care of Michigan. We inherited, this administration inherited a broken system.
The original tests, the ones we inherited, Jim, as an example, they were broken. They were obsolete. And you remember we inherited a broken system. We inherited a broken system. WHO, that's the World Health Organization, they missed the call. World Health got it wrong. I mean, they got it very wrong. In many ways, they were wrong. I'm not happy with the World Health Organization. The reality is that the WHO failed to adequately obtain, vet, and share information in a timely and transparent fashion. It would have been so easy to be truthful. The coronavirus, you know that, right? Coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. And the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to 0.
You know that this. We know one thing is as impactful as that is, it's going to be outdated by the end of the day because it says 31,000 deaths.
Oh, no.
The death count just keeps skyrocketing up, like that chart that Eric Erickson tweeted out earlier. It's still, deaths are still going straight up. Like so many Americans, millions of Americans have been responsible, and they've stayed at home, and they've taken social distancing seriously, and so the mitigation is helping right now. But Mika, in the recount video, Donald Trump blamed China. Of course, at the same time, before that, he had said how great China was, and they were transparent, and he thanked President Xi. Blamed the governors, blamed that woman from Michigan, blamed other presidents, blamed the World Health Organization for basically taking the same stance that he did.
Yeah.
Said, why couldn't they just be truthful? And then, of course, we see that this is the same Donald Trump that said, it basically called it a hoax. And the coronavirus, he said coronavirus, and his audience booed at the, quote, hoax, that the media was overplaying it, the medical community was overplaying it, the scientists were overplaying it. Well, they weren't overplaying it. And now that actually mitigation is working, that listening to Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx is working, now they're at it again. What the hell is going on?
Well, I think in terms of the media responsibility, it is really curious. Even the host that we came in with, the attitude of these interviews are all in line with Trump's desire to reopen the country, which he had this big pronouncement yesterday.
Testing, before we're ready.
Yeah. A big pronouncement yesterday about a grand reopening, which is now given to the states, given to the governors, which he claimed he had absolute power over, but now doesn't, because he would like the responsibility to lay on them. Dr. Birx laid out very clear guidelines as to how some businesses could reopen. They are specific. Are they perfect? No, but they help with the physical distancing. They help with trying to stop the spread. That's all on us still. It's not testing. It's not therapeutics. It's not a vaccine. So it was very uncomfortable to watch that host when we came in pushing Dr. Fauci to try and say this might go away, like some other epidemic that, the world has faced. And for him to say very politely, to use the word misleading to her face, because it was. And usually journalistically even, the way she was questioning and pushing toward this going away was so off base, because you look for 2, 3 sources. You look for really, really strong sources. There are no sources saying this is going to go out away on its own. So you have to wonder what the motive is there, like a job or something. Jim Vandehei, Donald Trump often interacts with his friends on television and tries to push for a certain theme. Is it possible that he's still sort of interacting that way?
Well, I think what's interesting about this conspiracy theory is if you think about the conspiracy theories since Donald Trump took office, he was usually a big participant in it. And right now, if you look at what Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or some of these conservative commentators are saying, just point to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's been the one who's sitting at the podium saying that 2.2 million people could have died. Maybe it's 1.6 million people could have died. Then he says the number's 100 to 250,000. They're saying, well, it's a hoax. And why is he up there now saying this is what I see when I look at the evidence? And if Donald Trump did want to signal to them that, yeah, get back to work, this is all a hoax, he would just say it. If you look at that plan that he put out last night, that was a very, very conservative plan, and it was very deferential to the governors, and it's staggered, and it's basically doing the things that the Faucis of the world want him to do. And so whatever's happening with these doctors, and by the way, I've talked to some business leaders. I've talked to Fortune 500 CEOs who share this view, who will talk about it in private, that they believe that we're overreacting to, yes, it's a terrible death count, but it's not that high compared to the flu or that high compared to car accidents. And so there's definitely people out there who sincerely believe that the risk reward, that we've erred on that. But there's almost nobody who's actually studied this, no governor who's looked at the data, none of the health officials, nobody at HHS, nobody at FDA, nobody on the task force really who's saying, listen, yeah, this is all a joke. We can run back in and it's going to dissipate quickly. I think we know now what it is, and we know the steps that we need to take. And I think they were articulated yesterday. There's such a gap between the bravado that you hear from President Trump in some of these meandering news conferences and then what they're actually doing. Had he not done all that weird stuff about I'm the authoritarian leader and I can dictate what governors would do, like, all that was meaningless, right? It was nonsense, because he ended up doing what the Constitution tells him he can do, which is you defer to the states to let them make decisions about commerce and governance in their locality.
Yeah. So, Jim, I'm so glad you brought up the fact that the president himself talked about over 2 million people could die if there weren't social distancing guidelines that were followed, if they didn't follow what Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and other medical people said. He, of course, saw what happened with Boris Johnson, who mocked this, went around shaking hands and almost died, ended up in intensive care, and then was begging people to take this seriously. I have relatives, sadly. I've got friends who aren't taking this seriously because they're listening to so much of this propaganda that is deadly propaganda, and it scares me to death for them. For a lot of friends and loved ones. But let's look at this chart again. And I direct this to those CEOs that you're talking about that say this is just like car accidents. Look at this chart. Again, they're car crashes, straight line. There's the 2017 and 18 flu. Look how low it is. There's the 2017-18 flu and pneumonia numbers. The 57 and 58 Asian flu with pneumonia. And then, CEOs, I want you to look at that red line. Now, here's the deal. We can't reopen the economy as much as I want to reopen the economy, as much as Mika wants to reopen, as much as all of our close friends who have small businesses want the economy reopened, until that line flattens out. And it sure as hell would help if we actually had, Jim, Testing. It always goes back to testing, testing, testing. Donald Trump has failed miserably on testing. Boris Johnson has failed miserably on testing. The United States and the United Kingdom failed miserably on testing. We said no to the World Health Organization when they had tests for us early on. And we are in such a mess right now because of testing. Jim, the president understands this. I mean, people are going to die if we go back too soon. And for those CEOs and small business owners, if we go back too soon and we get hit again hard and they have to close again, then it's twice as devastating if they have to reclose all over again.
I'll say what I said the other day, right? Which is that, like, put the conspiracy nuts to the side. Like, most American people have behaved super responsibly. Most people have done what their governors have told them to do. And so if we had enough masks, if we had enough testing, people are going to do the right thing. They're going to do their instant tests. They're going to return to work. They're going to sit 6 feet apart. They're going to put a mask on. We've seen it. Everyone in masks, most people, you can find a couple of anomalies, but most people have done the right thing. So now it really does come down towards getting testing right. Do we get enough tests to enough people that are instantaneous and that are trustworthy so that we can move back into a place where people can be in a workplace? Because the good news is, in most places, it looks like we're going to have enough hospital beds. And over time, looks like we will have enough ventilators. So when there is an outbreak, assuming you get the testing piece right, you can have like some return to normality. You're not going to have concerts. You're not going to have probably football stadiums full of people this year. But the rest of those things, if you do all those other things, can happen. And one of the things that the president is being told by advisors is, listen, you be very careful with your rhetoric here, because you might be able to blame the Chinese in terms of like who's to blame for the origination of this virus. But if you push people back and you're the person who sat on the podium and said, I'm all powerful and I dictated that everyone should return to work, and then you see a massive death spike, well, then that's totally on you. And so there's a danger in sort of I'm the all-powerful leader in this case, which, by the way, is why he's doing what everyone said he should do and knew he would do, which is defer to the governors. And some of those governors next week will start to return to work, and we'll see the consequences of that. Hopefully hopefully they're right, and hopefully in those regions it wasn't as bad as people feared, and they can do it.
Yeah, we'll see. Some of those places the president said could open up as early as this morning, places like Wyoming and Montana, so we'll have laboratories to see if it works.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.